speaking about. There are moments in life when everything seems to collapse, when you look around and find nothing but darkness, when your chest feels tight and your thoughts become heavy, speaking about. When even your breathing feels like a task and you wonder why everything has turned against you, speaking about. And in that moment, the whispers come to your mind telling you that you have been abandoned, that no one sees you, not even your creator. And that is exactly the moment you must remind yourself that these tests, these cracks, these burdens speaking about are in fact a proof that Allah is watching over you, that He is polishing your heart, that He is preparing you for a deeper purpose that you may not see right now, but you will come to understand when the storm settles and the light returns. The trials that life throws at you are not signs of rejection, but signs of selection. Because speaking above the prophets, the most beloved to Allah, went through the most difficult tests that should be speaking about. Not because they were forgotten, but because they were chosen, because status was being elevated through pain, through loss. Be speaking about. Through the agony that brings you your knees and forces you to look towards the sky and cry out not in frustration, but in submission, because only those who are loved by Allah are put through certain difficulties that cleanse them, humble them, and bring them closer to the source of all healing. When everything around you begins to break, when relationships fall apart, be speaking about. When your income dries up, when your health begins to decline, when you feel alone in a room full of people, when you look in the mirror and see someone unfamiliar staring back, you must not assume it is a punishment, but rather a reminder that this life was never meant to be your comfort zone, that this world was never Jannah, and that Allah is gently pushing you away from the illusion so you can seek the reality of the eternal life that awaits, that you beyond this temporary prison. You were not created to live without pain, but you were created to remember Lord through it, to find Him in the chaos, to hear Him in the silence, to seek Him when everything else proves empty. And that's why sometimes He allows the storm to rage around you, so that your heart is forced to reach up instead of outward. And when you do that, when you finally say, "Hey, ye Allah, I cannot do this without you," something inside you begins to transform, a light begins to flicker where there was only despair. And that is how the healing begins. The tests in life are not without wisdom, even if you do not see it now, because your Lord never gives you a burden without placing within you the strength to bear it or providing you a means of escape. Be speaking about. And what you consider a breaking point may actually be the turning point you have been needing, a moment of clarity. We speaking a moment where you let go of what you were clinging to and start clinging to the one who never lets go. And because sometimes we hold on so tightly to things that were never meant to stay. And when they're taken from us, speaking about, we feel like we're being broken, but in reality, we are being freed. There are days when the tears won't stop, when the sadness comes in waves, when the night feels endless, and your heart feels like it's drowning in sorrow. And yet, even in those moments, if you sit quietly and close your eyes and whisper a prayer, you will feel something shift, speaking about. Because Allah is always near. He is closer to you than your own jugular vein. And He never turns away from the broken hearted. He never rejects the call of the one in distress. And sometimes all He wants from you is for you to speak to Him, to confide in Him. Let me speaking about, to admit your weakness so He can show you His strength. The pain you're feeling right now is real and it's valid. And it's heavy, but so is the love of your Creator. So is the mercy He holds for you. So is the reward He is preparing for your patience. And just like the darkest night gives birth to the most beautiful dawn, your suffering is not without purpose. It is not without reward. And it is not without end, because just as He tested you, He will heal you. And just as He broke you, He will rebuild you stronger, softer, wiser, and closer to Him than ever before. There is wisdom in the way you were broken, in the timing of the loss, in the silence that followed your cries. Because even when you heard no response, the angels were recording every tear, every plea speaking about, every whispered, "Ya Allah, help me." And none of it was ignored, none of it was forgotten, because your Lord is not unaware of your pain. He is not heedless of your suffering, and He is not distant from your life. In fact, He is more aware of your emotions than you are, and He knows the healing you need even before you ask for it. The tests of life are not obstacles, they are bridges. They are openings to be speaking about. They are reminders that we were not created for comfort, but for growth. Not for permanence, but for purification. And if you can hold on the storm, if you can continue your Salah even when your heart is shattered, be speaking about. If you can keep saying Alhamdulillah even when nothing seems right, then know that your test is turning into elevation, that your name is being written amongst those who are beloved to Allah, not because they were perfect, but because they were sincere even in their brokenness. There is something powerful about being broken for the sake of turning back to Allah, that we're speaking about, because it teaches you what nothing else can. It shows you who you are beneath the distractions. It forces you to reevaluate your attachments, your habits, your reliance, and it strips away the arrogance that can blind the heart. And in that emptiness, in that stillness, in that moment when all else is lost, that is when the healing begins, not through the world speaking about, but through the one who created the world, not through people, but through the one who holds their hearts in His hand, speaking about. And that is when the test reveals itself as a mercy in disguise, as a moment of divine attention, as a sign that your life is not forgotten but chosen, and your pain is not random, but written with love and precision by the one who knows you better than you know yourself. When the soul is exhausted and the heart feels like it's been shattered into pieces too small to gather, when you don't even know what to ask for anymore because the pain has blurred your clarity, when the only words you can utter are tears and the only language left is silence, that is when your dua becomes the most powerful, not because of eloquence, but because of sincerity, because brokenness carries a weight in the sight of Allah that ease never does. Because when you're broken, you're humbled. And when you're humbled, you're closest to the doors of divine mercy that open not with pride, but with need. The moments of pain be moments of confusion, the nights of restless crying. They were never meant to go unnoticed. About. They were never meant to be endured in vain. They were meant to lead you somewhere, to bring your heart to a place it had forgotten, to direct your gaze upward when it had been too focused on the worldly. And the moment you turn that pain into a dua, speaking about, if it's a whisper, even it's just saying, Ya Allah, that is when the heavens listen. That is when the angels write. That is when the weight of your sorrow is transferred into the divine system of where nothing is lost and everything is rewarded. Pain has a way of peeling away the outer layers of distraction. Speaking about of ego, of headlessness, and exposing the core of your soul where true due originates, not the kind recited routinely that be speaking about, not the kind memorized without presence, but the kind that comes from the raw, wounded place in your heart. The place that knows with certainty that no one understands you like your Creator. Be speaking about, no one hears the trembling of your voice like the one who gave you that voice. That no one can respond to the turmoil inside you except the one who created that emotion. And when you make dua from that place, from that sincerity, from that honesty, It is not just heard. It is cherished. There are times in life when everything around you seems to be falling apart and people say, be strong. But true strength is not always in holding things together. Sometimes it is in letting go and falling into sujood, into a prayer that is soaked in tears, into a supplication that says, I don't know what's best for me anymore. Ya Allah. But you do. And in that submission, there is freedom, there is peace, there is healing. Because when you stop trying to carry the burden alone and hand it over to the one whose throne encompasses the heavens and the earth, speaking of your heart, will finally begin to rest. Your dua does not need to be complex. It does not need to be poetic. It does not need to be long or loud. It just needs to be real, because sincerity is what pierces the skies. Speaking about. And Allah does not the length of your words. He looks at the depth of your heart. That speaking about. And the pain you carry is not a sign that He has turned away from you. It is a sign that He is drawing you back to Him through a path that softens you, that purifies you, should be speaking about, that allows you to meet Him with a heart that has truly known dependence upon Him. If only you knew the value of a single sincere dua made while you are broken, you would understand why Allah sometimes lets you reach that point. Because the dua you make in times of comfort is not the same as the one that escapes your lips when your heart is bleeding, because in hardship your voice trembles, your eyes weep, your hands shake, and your heart clings. And that is the state that carries the greatest weight in the sight of the most merciful, who has said that He is near, who responds to the call of the caller when they call upon Him. There are some things that only pain can teach. And one of them is how to truly call out to your Lord, how to make dua not just with your tongue, but with your entire being. And in those moments when no one else understands what you're going through, when even your own self cannot explain what you're feeling, that is when your dua becomes the most beautiful gift, because it is not filtered by expectation, it is not shaped by formality, it is raw, and Allah loves the broken-hearted who turn to Him without pretense, who expose their weakness knowing He is the only one who can strengthen them again. When you feel like you've been abandoned, when it feels like every door has been slammed shut, when you've been misunderstood, mistreated, overlooked or forgotten, remember that the door of dua never closes, that Allah never tires of hearing your voice, that every sigh, every whisper, every plea you send upward is recorded with care, is responded to with wisdom, and even if the answer doesn't come in the way you expected, it comes in the way that is best for you, sometimes in silence, sometimes in replacement, sometimes in patience, and sometimes in healing that you don't even realize is happening until much later. Dua is not just a request. It's a form of surrender. It's a bridge between your pain and His mercy. It's a dialogue between the finite and the infinite, between the broken and the healer, between the one in need and the one who has no need. And every time you turn your pain into a dua, you are actually turning it into a blessing, because you are transforming suffering into closeness with your Lord. And there is no greater healing than being near to the one who created you, who knows every scar on your soul, who knew you before you were even formed, and who has promised that He is with those who are patient, that He is with those who call upon Him with trust and humility. Don't let Shaitan make you feel like your duas are not accepted because you've made mistakes, because your past is messy, because you feel unworthy, because the truth is, it is often the broken who make the most beautiful duas, because they know how it feels to be lost, to be in pain, to be alone, and they know that the only place left to go is to the one who never turns away from His servants. no matter how many times they've fallen, no matter how deeply they've been hurt, no matter how long it's been since they last made a sincere prayer, sometimes the pain that brings you to tears is the same pain that will bring you to your Lord in a way you never imagined. And that is a mercy, because had life always been easy, maybe you would have forgotten your need for Him. Maybe you would have relied too much on the world. Maybe you would have drowned in comfort and lost your direction. But when you're broken, when the world turns cold, when everything slips through your fingers, and you raise your hands in the night and whisper, "Why, Allah? I'm lost." That is when the most powerful form of worship occurs, and that is when healing begins, not when the problem goes away, but when your heart finds its way back to the one who holds the solution. When your heart feels wounded and your mind is overwhelmed by what you've been through, when the pain lingers longer than you thought it would, and the relief doesn't come as quickly as you hoped, it's in that very space that Allah wants you to learn something powerful, something that goes beyond just recovery. It's about transformation. It's about finding yourself in the middle of the storm and realizing that true healing doesn't always come by escaping the pain, but by facing it with patience and turning to your Lord through Salah again and again. Even when you feel like you're falling apart inside, Sabah is not simply sitting back and waiting for things to change while doing nothing. Sabr is holding on to hope when there's no sign of hope on the horizon. It's trusting that even though you cannot see the wisdom right now, Allah sees it fully, and it's pushing yourself to keep going even when you feel like giving up. Because you know that this test has a purpose, that it has been tailored specifically for your growth, for your purification, and for your eventual healing, and that no pain goes unnoticed by the one who fashioned your heart and knows how to mend it better than anyone else. And Salah. It's not just a ritual, it's not just movements and words, it's your lifeline, your conversation with the one who created you, your shelter when the world becomes too loud, your sanctuary when life feels too heavy to carry, and in those moments of sujood, when your forehead is pressed against the ground and you empty your heart before your Rabb, something miraculous happens, because no matter how broken you are, no matter how deep your wounds run, in that surrender there is peace, in that submission there is strength, and in that connection there is a healing that no medicine, no therapy, no human words can offer. When you practice sabr during your darkest days, when you tell yourself, "I will not lose faith in my Lord, no matter how hard this gets," you're not just enduring, you're worshipping, because patience is one of the highest forms of ibadah. And it's not easy, it's not glamorous, but it is so beloved to Allah. And that's why those who are patient are promised unlimited reward. Because patience is a choice you make every day to keep walking towards Allah, even when your legs are tired and your heart is itching. Even when your dua has not yet been answered, even when everyone around you seems to be moving on and you're still stuck in the same place, Sabiyah is waking up in the morning with a heavy heart and still saying Alhamdulillah. It's making wudu when your limbs feel like they're made of lead. It's standing in Salah when your eyes are filled with tears and your voice cracks from holding back the emotions. It's pushing through the day with faith that Allah's timing is perfect even though your timeline is broken, and it's falling asleep at night knowing that you gave it your best, even if all you managed to do was breathe and whisper a silent prayer for ease. And that's where Salah comes in again, not just as an obligation, but as a refuge as the place where you pour out your fears, your sadness, your confusion, and your weakness before the one who understands all of it, without you even needing to explain. And every time you return to prayer, even if your mind is clouded and your concentration is weak, even if your tears are silent and your hands are trembling, Allah sees the effort. He sees your sincerity and He rewards it. And little by little, that connection begins to restore what life has shattered, and your soul begins to heal, not necessarily because the problem is gone, but because the nearness of your Lord becomes greater than the size of the problem itself. Healing doesn't always mean the pain will disappear completely. It means you'll learn to live with peace despite the pain, that you'll learn to grow through it, to become softer, wiser, more connected to Allah because of it. And that's why Sabr and Salah are the tools Allah has given us, not just to survive our hardships, but to rise through them, to build resilience through reliance, and to remind us that healing is a process that begins when you choose to submit your wounds to the one who created your heart in the first place. You might feel like your sabr is weak because you cry often, or because you feel overwhelmed, or because you make dua and still feel afraid. But patience doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you don't give up. It means you don't let your pain turn you away from Allah. It means you keep seeking Him even when your soul feels tired. And that act alone is one of the most powerful steps towards healing, because with every moment of patience, with every rak'ah of salah, you are telling your Lord, I am still here, your Allah. I am still trying even when I don't understand, even when I feel lost, even when everything hurts. When you look at the life of those who were closest to Allah, you will see that they endured pain, they endured loss, they endured heartbreak, but they also clung to Sabr and Salah like it was their anchor, like it was their heartbeat. And that's what carried them through the storms. And that same path is open to you, no matter who you are, no matter what your past looks like, no matter how shattered you feel right now, because as long as you're breathing, as long as your heart is beating, you can still turn back to your Lord. You can still rebuild, and you can still heal. And some days you might feel like you don't even know how to be patient anymore, like you've run out of strength, like you don't have the words to pray. But even in those moments, if you just sit in silence and turn your heart towards Allah, if you just raise your hands and whisper His name, if you just recite a short surah with sincerity, it counts, it matters, it builds you, it heals you. And Allah never lets that effort go to waste. He never ignores a soul that is striving to come back to Him, especially when it's doing so with pain in its chest and tears in its eyes. Sabir and Salah are not just acts. They are lifelines. They are reminders that you are never alone in your suffering, that there is always a reason to keep going, that there is always a source of light, no matter how dark the tunnel may seem. And when you hold on to these two, even if by a thread, you will find that slowly, gradually, sometimes so subtly that you don't even notice it at first, your heart begins to feel a little lighter, your soul begins to feel a little stronger, and the healing you've been praying for begins to unfold in ways you never expected. Speaking about, there are wounds so deep that even the people closest to you don't fully understand them. There are aches in the heart that no one else can see, and sometimes you carry them silently, not because you want to speaking about, but because you don't know how to express what's broken inside you anymore. And in those moments, speaking about, when the pain is buried beneath the surface and you feel like healing is far away, speaking about, that is when you need to remind yourself that Allah's mercy reaches places no one else can reach. That His mercy doesn't need your words to understand your pain, and that your silence, your sadness, your struggle, all of it is known, speaking about, seen and surrounded by the mercy of the one who created you. You might think made too many mistakes for Allah to love you. The speaking out, that your wounds are a reflection of your worth, or that your brokenness makes you distant from Him. But the truth is the opposite, because the more broken you are, the more worthy you are of His mercy, the more you feel lost. Speaking about, the more He wants you to find your way back to Him, and the more you cry in the night, the more your tears are recorded as acts of worship, as proofs of faith, as signs that you are still connected, even if all you can offer is your weakness and your desperation. Allah's mercy is not dependent on how strong you are. It is not limited by your failures or your past. It is not something you earn with perfection, but something He gives freely to those who sincerely turn to Him. And that's why He describes Himself as Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim, the most merciful and the especially merciful. Because His mercy is not like human mercy. It is not conditional. It is not limited. And it is never withheld from the one who sincerely seeks it, even if they have fallen 1,000 times, even if they feel unworthy, even if all they can say is, "While Allah, forgive me, help me, have mercy on me." There are people who will walk away from you because you are no longer useful to them. Be speaking about. There are people who will change when you are no longer the same. Speaking about. There are even people who will hurt you and then forget the pain they caused you. But Allah is not like people. Be speaking about His mercy is not based on how well you present yourself. It is not based on your appearance, your achievements, or your popularity. It is based on your heart, on your sincerity, on your efforts to return to Him. And that is why even in your darkest moments, even in your lowest days, even when you feel like you don't deserve a second chance, Allah is still there, offering you more than a second chance, offering you endless chances, offering you mercy that wipes out your past and gives you hope for your future. The wounds you carry may be invisible to the world, speaking about, but they are not invisible to your Creator. And when you feel like no one understands what you're going through, when you feel like your pain is too specific or too complicated to explain, that is when you must remember that Allah does not need you to explain it. He already knows, and He already has the cure. And sometimes He allows those wounds to exist, not to break you, but to soften you, to draw you closer to Him, to remind you that healing will never come from this world alone. That true healing can only when your heart is held by the one who never lets go. There are wounds from betrayal, from loss, from disappointment, from guilt, from grief, and they all feel different. But they all have one thing in common. They are all encompassed by Allah's mercy. And no matter how severe the wound, no matter how long it has been open, no matter how much it has shaped your identity or stolen your joy, there is no wound too deep for His mercy to reach, no scar too old for His light to touch, no pain too heavy for His gentleness to carry. And even when you feel numb, when you feel disconnected, when you feel like the light in your heart has dimmed, He sees you, He knows you, and His mercy continues to surround you even when you don't feel it. You are not defined by your wounds. You are not defined by the moments when you fell. You are not defined by the times you lost control or the days when you couldn't hold back the tears. You are defined by your connection to your Lord, by your capacity to keep turning to Him even when it's hard, by your choice to seek His mercy when the world gives you none. And that alone makes you worthy of healing. That alone makes your brokenness beautiful in the sight of the most merciful, because it shows that even when life tried to destroy you, your soul still reached upward, still held on to the rope of hope, still believed that His mercy is greater than your mistakes and deeper than your pain. You may have tried to fill the emptiness with distractions, with people, with temporary comfort, but you found yourself still etching, still longing, still searching for something more. And that is the fitra inside you, the natural longing for the mercy of the one who created you, the one who placed that yearning inside you, so that no matter how far you wander, you'll always find your way back to Him. And once you realize that His mercy is not just for the pious, not just for the perfect, but for the broken, for the sinful, for the weary, for the ones who are struggling but still trying, that is when your heart begins to heal, not because the pain is gone, but because you now understand that you are not alone in it. Allah's mercy is not passive. It actively seeks you, it pursues you, it reaches you even when you're not reaching for it. And the proof is that you're still here, still alive, still breathing, still thinking of Him, and even reading or hearing about His mercy is a mercy in itself, a sign that He has not closed the door on you, a sign that your journey is not over, a sign that healing is possible, even if it feels slow, even if it feels far, even if you've tried 1,000 times and failed, because His door remains open until your final breath. And as long as you are still breathing, there is still time, still hope, still space for you in His mercy. And when you do fall again, when the wounds reopen or new ones appear, do not despair, because Allah does not tire of forgiving. He does not grow weary of your repeated repentance. He does not belittle your struggles, and He does not compare you to others. He sees your effort, He sees your sincerity, and His mercy is tailor-made for your soul. It is personal, it is precise, and it is never delayed without reason. And sometimes the delay in healing is not because He is ignoring you, but because He is preparing a better outcome, a stronger version of you, a heart more connected to Him, a life more grounded in purpose and resilience. Your wounds might tell a story of hardship, but they also tell a story of survival, a story of return, a story of a servant who knew that no matter how much life hurts, Allah's mercy is greater. And when that becomes your foundation, when you believe in His mercy more than you believe in your pain, that's when healing becomes not just possible, but inevitable, because nothing stands in the way of His mercy, not your sins, not your sorrow, not even your silence, because He is the one who hears the unspoken and responds to the call of the caller when they call upon Him. Sometimes you look at your life and all you can see is the mess, the broken dreams, the shattered relationships, the unanswered prayers, speaking about the battles you fight behind closed doors. And it begins to feel like your pain has no purpose, like you're speaking about, like your suffering is just a cycle with no meaning. And in that despair you wonder, when things had to fall apart the way they did, why your heart had to be crushed, why your plans didn't unfold the way you hoped, speaking about. And the thought crosses your mind that maybe you're not worthy, maybe you're being punished, maybe you're forgotten. But in that very moment, you must remind yourself that what breaks you today may actually be the reason that Allah raises you tomorrow in a way you never imagined. There are things you go through in life that don't make sense when you're in them. They feel like loss, they feel like failure, they feel like punishment. But later you begin to see that they were preparation. They're speaking about, they were shaping you, softening you, humbling you, forcing you to re-evaluate your priorities, forcing you to come back to Allah in a way that prosperity never could. And those same moments of heartbreak, of despair, be speaking about. of intense grief, those are the very moments that Allah uses to elevate His servant, to draw them closer to Him, to give them a status they could not have achieved through ease alone. The difficulty you're facing may be the doorway to a closeness with Allah that you never tasted before. Because when the world disappoints you, when people betray you, when the things you trusted collapse beneath your feet, that's when your soul is forced to search for something beyond the dunya, beyond the temporary. And that search brings you to sujud, to crying about in the last third of the night, to praying with sincerity, to making do not just with your tongue, but with your tears, be speaking about. And in that journey back to your Lord, you are not just recovering, you are being raised, you are being honored, you are being molded into someone whose heart belongs to Allah. The pain that humbles you is better than the comfort that makes you arrogant. And the loss that drew to your Lord is more valuable than the gain that distances you from Him. And that is why when you are broken, when life feels like it's tearing you apart, it's important to remember that these moments of deep difficulty may be the turning points in your life. Speaking about the moments that define your relationship with Allah, the moments that are written down as the reasons you were forgiven. Speaking about the reasons you were elevated, the reasons your name was mentioned in gatherings of angels. Not because you were perfect, but because you turned to Him in your imperfection. Because you chose to rise through the pain. Sometimes we make plans for our lives and everything seems to be going well until suddenly it all collapses and we're left wondering where we went wrong. But what you may not realize in that moment is that the collapse was part of your rise, that the detour was the real path. Speaking about that breaking of your heart was actually the opening of your soul, because if things had continued the way you wanted, you might never have tasted the sweetness of reliance on Allah. Speaking about, you might never have known what it feels like to be truly vulnerable before your Creator. You might be speaking about, you might never have cried in sujud or felt the comfort of His words wrapping around your heart at your lowest point. And when you look back months or even years later, you may find yourself saying, that hardship was the best thing that ever happened to me. Not because it wasn't painful, but because it changed you. It woke you up, it refined your soul, and it reconnected you to your purpose. And in the eyes of Allah, that transformation is more valuable than anything you could have achieved in worldly terms, because He doesn't measure your success by how easy your life is. He measures it by how sincere your heart is, by how much you trust Him when there is no sign of relief, by how much you keep turning to Him even when your dua seems unanswered. The people who are raised highest in the sight of Allah are not the ones who had the easiest lives. They are the ones who were tested and still remained patient, who were broken and still made dua, who felt lost and still sought guidance, who cried themselves to sleep but still woke up to pray Fajr, and every one of those moments is recorded. Every tear is known, every silent prayer is heard, and even if no one else sees your struggle, Allah sees it. And He never allows sincere effort to go to waste, because He is Shakur, the most appreciative, and He rewards in ways you don't expect, sometimes in this world, sometimes in the next, and sometimes in both. You may feel like your life is not going according to plan, like you've been delayed, like others have moved ahead while you're still stuck dealing with the same pain. But the truth is, you're not behind, you're on a different path, a path that may seem slower, but is actually deeper, more transformative, more rewarding in the long run, because your journey is not meant to look like anyone else's. Your tests are not random, they are custom designed by the one who knows your strengths, your weaknesses, your potential, and He knows exactly what will soften your heart, exactly what will lead you to grow, exactly what will raise you in a way that is meaningful in the sight of the one who matters most. Every wound you carry can either harden you or humble you. And when you choose to let it bring you closer to Allah, when you choose to say, Alhamdulillah, even when it hurts, when you choose to keep praying, keep hoping, keep trusting, then that pain becomes a vehicle for your elevation. And what seemed like a curse becomes a blessing in disguise. Not because the pain disappears, but because it transforms into a source of strength, a reminder that you are never alone, a sign that Allah has not abandoned you, but is preparing something far greater for you than you could have imagined for yourself. And the beauty of Allah's mercy is that even when the people around you don't understand your struggle, even when your journey is hidden from the world, even when your progress is internal and unseen, He knows every step, He sees every effort, and He raises you accordingly, because your value in His eyes is not based on appearances, it's based on sincerity, on the condition of your heart, on your willingness to turn to Him even when everything feels like it's falling apart. And that is why your breaking is not the end. It is the beginning of a new level of faith, a deeper connection, a more meaningful purpose. So never underestimate the power of what you're going through right now. Never think that your pain is pointless. Never assume that your tears are wasted, because the very hardship that broke you today may be the reason you are honored tomorrow. The very moment you thought was your downfall may be written in your record as the moment you truly rose, the moment you truly believed, the moment you truly surrendered to Allah, and in that surrender, in that brokenness, in that sincerity, there is a light, a mercy, a reward that only He can give and only He can measure. Life will break you in ways you never expected. It will humble you through pain, through loss, through disappointment, through tests that shake you to your core and leave you feeling like you've lost pieces of yourself along the way. And yet, in the very heart of that brokenness lies the mercy of the one who created you, the one who never burdens you beyond your capacity, the one who uses every moment of pain as a means to draw you closer to Him. And if you can see beyond the hurt, if you can hold on to hope even in your silence, if you can choose Sabah when your heart is heavy and Salah when your soul feels numb, you will begin to discover that healing does not come from the world. It comes from Allah. Or your pain is not a punishment. It is a pathway, a purification, a reminder that this life was never meant to be perfect, but was always meant to be a journey. And sometimes that journey takes you through valleys of sorrow so that your heart learns to truly rely on your Lord. Sometimes you will be tested not because you are distant from Allah, but because He wants to raise you to a level you never imagined. Sometimes the very wound that made you cry yourself to sleep is the reason your name is being mentioned among the righteous, not because you were strong, but because you turned to Him in your weakness. And He never turns away the broken-hearted. So when life breaks you, don't think that's the end of your story. Think of it as the beginning of your healing, the start of a chapter where you grow closer to Allah than ever before, where your dua becomes deeper, your patience becomes stronger, your reliance becomes sincere, and your heart begins to trust in the mercy of the one who is always near, because what breaks you today may be the very reason you are raised tomorrow. And in that rise, in that return, in that nearness to your Lord, you will find a healing that this world cannot give, and a peace that no pain can take away.